The logical assumption at the end of Halo Infinite is that humanity is on its back foot once again. Just like Halo Combat Evolved, the United Nations Space Command is outmatched and outgunned by an alien menace, with the Master Chief being the most effective weapon they have. Gone is the Infinity, the UNSC's most powerful ship, and also the most tangible symbol of humanity's triumphant rise from the ashes of the Human Covenant War. But here's a hot take to dispute that assumption. The loss of Infinity is a major blow to the UNSC, yes, but it's not hard to look at the state of the UNSC at the end of Halo 5 compared to the end of Infinite and conclude that humanity is actually in a better position in 2560 than 2558. Let us explain. When Cortana activated the Guardians and declared that the mantle of responsibility was the purview of artificial life, she upended the entire galactic status quo. Showing up at Earth, Cortana disabled the entire planet, dealing particular damage to Sydney, Australia, a major seat of power for the UNSC High Command. Unknown numbers of UNSC personnel and ships were lost in the resulting attack, not to mention untold numbers of civilian casualties. Worse than the immediate loss of materiel, however, was the likely degradation of the UNSC's logistics apparatus. We see by late 2559 in the novels Divine Wind and Shadows of Reach that the UNSC's ability to gather intelligence is severely curtailed, and that massing forces or large-scale open conflict is impossible without sparking the attention of the created. Even if the UNSC could marshal their remaining forces for a targeted strike, it's unclear how much damage they could really do against the Guardians. Cortana's control over Forerunner technology was a huge advantage that humanity has no ready answer for. With the death of Cortana, it's unclear if created hegemony in the galaxy remains, but evidence points to the fact that if the created are still a threat, they are a greatly diminished one. On Zeta Halo, 6 months after the battle between the Banished and Infinity, there are downed Guardians on the ring and no new arrivals, no Promethean soldiers. Despite the danger the ring represents in the hands of the Banished, no created force has come to wrest it away from them. That suggests that the created no longer have the means to uphold their strict interpretation of the mantle, and that in turn means that human forces can move and organize freely in a way they haven't been able to for more than a year. Now, again, the loss of Infinity is a huge blow to the UNSC, but it's hard to say that the Banished are actually in a truly ascendant position to take advantage. While they have absolute control over Zeta Halo at the beginning of Infinite, it's a bit more tenuous than Asharum lets on. Atriox is MIA, and we hear from scattered audio logs that there is a growing dissatisfaction with the Banished's goals on Zeta Halo. Add to that the events of Infinite itself, which sees Asharum and many of the faction's greatest soldiers killed as well. This comes on the heels of the destruction of Doziak, the Jirahane homeworld, which is no doubt a massive loss for the Brutes in general and the Banished in particular. Having been discovered by the Covenant less than 80 years before having nearly nuked their civilization to extinction, it's likely the Brutes don't have a large diaspora in the galaxy compared to their rivals. There simply might not be many of them left outside the ranks of the Banished. Possibly more than humanity was in the Human Covenant War, the Brutes are now an endangered species. Adding to the Banished potential issues with the recruitment is that Asharum's turn on the human members of the Banished was extremely counterproductive. Having to capture the very individuals you need to activate Forerunner technology is not sound strategic thinking, and Asharum's pivot from a more straightforward mercenary organization to one that's starting to resemble the Covenant, with its veneration of Atriox and ideological dogma, is just leading the Banished down the same dead-end path of the Covenant, which at its height was a much more militarily impressive organization anyhow. The Banished is an organization that's ripe for internal dissent and infighting that will weaken them, especially as the human resistance on the ring begins to reform. While we don't know the state of other major players on the galactic stage, such as the Arbiter-led Swords of St. Helios and wherever the Hulchul Vaughn got to, it might be more accurate to say that rather than humanity being laid low in the wake of Infinite, basically all the major players are equally weak. And frankly, I put much more faith in the UNSC to be able to rebuild than I do the Banished. While we've not heard anything about the ship in months, Infinity's sister ship, Eternity, is possibly still out there, giving the UNSC a platform to more rapidly rebuild. The proliferation of dumb AI and new Spartan training grounds means humanity has learned from its past mistakes and will be more resilient in the future. Also, they have Master Chief, so duh. X factors such as the return of the Sanshayum and the Endless could dramatically reshape the galactic stage once again, but the UNSC is far from knocked out of the fight.